Welcome to the first episode of my newest podcast, TheEdge, where we talk about the leap from teenage to adult. Today I have Julia Ihly as my first guest. Julia, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, I would love to introduce myself. Hi everyone, my name is Julia Ihly. I just graduated high school and I also just turned 19. I'm going to be a first year at Scripps College and I plan to go pre-law with a double major in philosophy, politics, and a minor in legal studies. I also love acting, sports, and just hanging out with my friends, and I recently directed a play in 2023 and wrote a play in 2021.
As you can see, Julia is very impressive, and she's also one of my dearest friends. So thank you again, Julia, for joining. A little background about me. I actually just graduated high school as well, just turned 18. Me and Julia went to high school together. I am hoping to pursue biotech, and I'm double majoring in physics and biochemistry at Loyola Marymount University. So today's first topic is actually going to be being taken seriously. It's something that both Julia and I have struggled with our extracurriculars, and especially as women, it's even harder to be taken seriously. So I felt that this was a very important issue that needed discussion. So, Julia, are you ready for the first question?
I am so ready.
Okay. Can you share an experience where you felt like you weren't taken seriously because of your age?
Yeah, I mean, well, for one, I did debate for a long time, all throughout middle school and high school. Not all throughout high school, but for the first few years. And something that I came across a lot was kind of the intersection of sexism and ageism. I remember I had this one judge, and we were actually talking about whether or not we should lower the age on voting, and also some age differences and discrepancies with the Supreme Court, because there is no age limit now about when you should retire. And so that's what the debate was about. And I just remember that I got surpassed and looked at as less than, compared to my, non-disabled, also like male counterparts. And even though I was like older, this judge in particular assumed that I didn't know as much because I was like younger and a woman, and I like look younger. And I remember he gave me like the lowest speaker score out of the entire debate. And it was odd because I was one of the more experienced debaters. And I remember that entire day I was getting really high scores and I was doing really great speeches. And I'm also an avid researcher. I participated in my school's junior and senior research projects, and seminars, and so I do love researching, and that's what really drew me to debate. But in that particular debate, it seemed like just because I was a woman and also I'm disabled, and because I looked younger, I guess, he just assumed I didn't know as much, and he didn't judge me based on what I was saying, but how I looked. And I think that was because I looked younger and I was like a girl. And I also remember like I spasmed during my speech and he like laughed. So it was a really weird vibe. And that's one of the moments that stand out to me.
Right. I can vouch for all of it, but particularly in research, as I'm also in the science field. When I'm submitting my research to a journal article, they ask the question, are you male or female? And I'm like, why does that matter? It's horrible. And thank you for sharing that experience.
Yeah, I think it's also something that people don't really talk that much about, but it's a conversation that needs to happen, especially in the debate world. And I know that I have a couple friends that have experienced the same things as me, and I think just having conversations like this is really important to kind of give a voice to some of the discrimination that happens and see what we can do to move past it in a positive way and address it.
Of course. And how did you handle that situation in the moment?
Well, I remember I was a little embarrassed because I like dropped my papers during my speech. Um, there was no podium. It was very odd. I remember I was in middle school, and there were all guys on my team and also the team I was competing against. There was only like guy judges. I think there was only like 3 moms in the room, including my mom. And I remember how I handled it was I was a little embarrassed at first. And I'm the type of person that takes a while to process things. So it was one of the last debates of the day, and I was really confused of why he was like having that reaction because when I'm like debating or when I'm acting, like I really get in the zone. And so when something like happens like that, I'm like, whoa, that's kind of odd. And I remember I talked through it with my dad and my mom who were watching what was going on, and I think I actually filed a complaint against him. I think I did. Yeah, I did. With the debate tournament director because that's no way of how to like treat someone, and so I usually take action, and I'm very assertive. And sometimes, that can make me a little bit insecure in the way because I'm still like, a teenager going through things, and I do crave, like having, socialness. And so sometimes when you stand up for yourself, it's really hard because there's a fear, at least for me, of, oh, am I going to get socially isolated? But in that case, and in a lot of other cases, I have stood up for what I believe in, and sometimes that means that people won't really want to respond to me in a positive way, but it also means that I stick to, what I believe in, and I think that's more important. And I think that like shine through this year when I got the Voice of Veritas award at my high school at my senior awards night, because I've been an advocate for so long for so many different things, but more in particular disability. And so getting that recognition after all of my hard work, especially the last few years, of just trying to increase literacy, was very kind of heartwarming to me because I was like, okay, I'm doing something right. And if anyone doesn't know what Veritas means, it means truth in Latin. So it's kind of like the voice of truth is what the award means. And it's just for advocacy. What student kind of shined through with advocacy and made a difference. That's what it says on the inscription. But that I usually stand up for myself and I use my voice and I'm very assertive.
Yeah. And I think there is this large misconception that people who are confident they can't be offended as easily. I don't know if you agree, but just because somebody is confident, and I think this is particularly accurate in the debate and research world, it doesn't mean that you have the right to make fun of them or their feelings won't get hurt. Just
I
because, just because someone believes in themselves doesn't mean you should attack at that.
Exactly. I agree with that so much because I think that a lot of people who are insecure, including myself, I think
Yeah.
sometimes, like, especially when I was younger, I would see someone who was really confident and I would kind of be like, oh my God, like, how can I be that confident? What are the steps that I have to take?
I
But then
second
other
that. I was
times,
the same way.
yeah, but then other times I'm like, wait, why can't I be as confident? I just saw the Inside Out movie. Um, and
Oh
like
my
that
gosh.
envy character, I feel like sometimes people who are a little bit insecure have some of that enviness going
Yeah.
on, and especially when you're a teenager, I feel because you're constantly comparing yourself. or at least I am, to the things I see and how I'm supposed to be,
Yeah,
just
and
how our
other people.
society
Yeah,
is,
definitely.
kind of made up. But I think that the importance of confidence is rooted in happiness and joy. And so if you're happy about what you're doing in your life, if you're joyful, if you have passion, then that's what allows confidence to grow. And if you're in a situation where you're not doing something that makes you happy, then I think honestly what I've learned in high school the last 4 years is stick with things that bring you joy, because things that bring you sadness are going to suck up your your inner self and your joy, and that's not good for you and that's not good for the people around you. So do things that make you happy, because that's the most fulfilling thing.
Branching off of that advice you just gave, have you found any specific strategies that helped you gain that seriousness in a room that you walked into? And
Oh my
also, what advice would you give to high schoolers who wanna perhaps write a play or do a large extracurricular to maybe stand out to colleges or do it for themselves?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing that I'm going to say is don't do an extracurricular activity just because you think it's going to look good on an application. What I mean by that is don't stress yourself out by trying to do 50 things all at once because you think that it's going to make you look 100% better, or whatever. Choose things that make you happy and you actually love doing. So what I mean by that is, like, for example, I have stuck with theater for a really long time. I actually just graduated from my theater group, the Silver Lake Children's Theater Group, after 6 years and doing 15 plays with them. And so I established a very strong foundation of my relationship with them. And so by the time that I was in high school, I had already known them for like almost 4 years, like the directors and the writers and the producers and the costume people and the crew. And so I had that foundation, and people knew me as someone who was passionate about theater. And I think continuing things that you were, passionate about when you were younger before high school is going to really help you kind of hold on to that joy and that kind of like nostalgia almost.
Right.
Um, and that's what's most important to me at the end of the day, is just knowing myself, being confident in myself, and being joyful. And I think, especially to answer another part of your question, how can you be more confident in a room full of people? For me, when I was struggling with, depression after being bullied for a really long time because I was disabled, facing a lot of ableism. If you don't know what ableism is, it means discrimination against disabled people in favor of non-disabled people. So I faced a lot of that, a lot of like misconceptions, and that really got me depressed when I was in high school. So I decided I wanted to do something about it. And a big part of that was my artistic expression, and that came when I was a sophomore in high school. I decided to apply for a writing mentorship within the Silver Lake Children's Theater Group. I got accepted May of my freshman year, my first year of high school, and then I worked all summer long, and then basically all fall, and I was able to write a play called Only Human, which was about the college admissions process, because I saw my older cousin going through it, and I saw how much it impacted the psyche almost of like teenagers. And I know now, I just finished going through this, and it's a lot. And I
It is
wanted
a lot.
yeah, and I wanted to kind of highlight the realness of teenagers that not a lot of adults see, I feel. And I also created a character that had my own disability, and I was able to play her authentically, you know, as a person with cerebral palsy playing a character with cerebral palsy. And I was able to get a lot of mentorship from the director that I worked with, Nell Murphy, who's at Carnegie Mellon right now, as well as Broderick Miller, who is the CEO of the theater group and who has directed and written like over 70 shows, and it is amazing. But they helped me kind of form my idea, and they kind of inspired me to work very hard and also have a really good partnership. And so I think if you want to be confident going into a room, you have to know who your people are, and that starts with knowing who you are. Because I knew that I wanted to create a play that meant something to people. I didn't care if, you know, if I won some award, which is, I really appreciate the recognition, but I wanted to have people have an emotional reaction to my show and be like, wow, it really is just important not to judge people by how they look, but by the content of who they are. And a lot of people had that reaction. And I think that's the most confident way that you can be in a room, just knowing yourself. And that's so hard. That's so easier said than done. And I'm still trying to know myself, and I'm still trying to love myself and grow. But I think, you know, if you want to do an extracurricular activity, do something that makes you happy, that the little you would be proud of. And I think that if you're passionate about something, the colleges will see that, and they will see that you're dedicated, and I think that's really important.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Julia. And as the two of us, like, we just finished the college application process, we can safely say that where you go does not define you at all, even though all of this pressure is on you. It's so random as well, and it really doesn't matter, because you're talented and you will bring that talent wherever you go.
Definitely. I think I can speak for both of us when I say that those rejections really hurt. I remember I got rejected from one of my quote unquote dream schools, and I remember I was in the car and it was like coming out at 5 p.m. and I remember like at 5:01 I got the email and it said like, sorry but no, or like, you know, sorry, you're not accepted. And I remember being in my car with my mom, and I was just crying and I was just letting my emotions out. But it was so hard because those rejections, and especially like with me, as a person, I fear the most kind of like rejection, I guess. Like, you know, rejection's really hard, especially when you're trying to figure out who you are. And so I just remember like feeling all of my emotions and just letting out an emotional release. But it took time for me to feel better. Like, I started to feel better when I got like more news, and I like went to rehearsal and I did things that made me happy. Because you're right, Ashley, no matter where you end up, you're going to find your people, you're going to find the things that bring you joy, and that's the most important thing.
I can even say I did not do any early actions, early decisions. I did a few, but to my safety schools. So I like left all my quote unquote dream schools till that week in March. And when I didn't get in to the schools that I originally wanted to attend, I remember being depressed for like a week. And it was bad. I did not shower, I did not eat. And because I felt like I failed everybody, including myself, which now I know is not true. But because of the pressure that is put on teenagers and young adults, that's the problem in society. It can lead teenagers feeling this sort of way, that they failed everyone and their life is over in that moment, even though it's just beginning.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So, to all of our rising seniors, wherever you end up, you're gonna be fine. You're actually like I did not believe in this before. I was very stubborn about it. When people say rejection is redirection, but coming from the most stubborn person I know, which is me, it's not true.
I'm also very stubborn and very,
Yeah,
very hard on
yeah,
myself.
yeah.
Like
Me too.
I remember when I would get like a B, I
Oh,
would
a
be
B
like
is death.
so
Yeah,
so hard on myself, and then I realized I was like, wait, no, a B's like good.
yeah,
Like
it's good. And
a
we took the
B's
hardest
good.
classes too, so a B is good.
Yeah, and I mean like especially like some advice that I would give to like rising seniors, especially with classes, is take APs and honors that you're really interested in. Don't don't try to like, I guess, at least for me, I knew that I didn't want to take any APs or honors in math and STEM and science because I'm not a STEM gal. It's not my cup of tea, but I knew that humanities was really important to me, so I focused more on humanities my senior year of high school, and I did really well in them. And again, it's just about preserving your joy. And I mean, not to say that it wasn't stressful, because, okay, AP Lit, a little bit stressful. A little bit, I mean, a lot.
You had a very difficult
But, like,
teacher.
yeah, but,
Yeah,
like, I learned a lot from it, and now
yeah,
I'm grateful for it.
same,
Um, but, like,
definitely.
also preserve time for yourself to have fun, because my senior year, I was so stressed out by colleges. I was so stressed out by everything that I feel like my social meter just went completely down. And now this
Yeah,
summer, I'm actually trying to rebuild it. So I was just like, hanging out with some of my friends who are also, in college and just doing things that make me happy, because I feel like I didn't do enough of that when I was in high
yeah.
school, especially.
Now it's time to rebuild that.
Exactly.
And for our last question, because I know you have to go soon, do you think social media has an impact on the way teens are portrayed?
Yes, I do. And I'm kind of like almost laughing a little at this question because it's been a very hot topic
Yeah,
in the Ihly household right now.
really?
Because,
Okay,
yeah, I think my parents see how social media has kind of impacted me in the way where I'm just kind of stressed out a little bit because you're constantly comparing yourself and you're like, oh my
right.
god, like I need to do more, I need to whatever. And so I think that in terms of the portrayal of teenagers, social media is a really big influence on it, because I feel like, oh, if you see a bunch of girls, posing a certain way, or taking photos or going to this place, you're
You're
like,
gonna
oh
want
my
to do the
god,
same
I
thing.
want to do that too.
Yeah,
And it's like, even for my 19th birthday, like
yeah.
I went to this really cool restaurant in downtown LA. Where did I find it? On social media.
Social
I
media,
found it on Instagram.
definitely. Yeah,
So like it definitely influences the way that you can like live, and
right.
just the way that you interact with things. But I think it's also important to take a break from it, even like for a few days, or just like, here's what I'm doing for myself, because I'm low key kind of addicted. So like, you can't just say, oh, just get rid of it. Like, you
Yeah,
can't just go from one extreme to the other. So what I'm starting to do is I'm like, okay, I'll only look at it 1 or 2 times a day, and then for a couple days I won't go on it. Because I'll be
right.
like, I don't know, I'm starting to help my mom with her work, and doing social things with people, and like just having real great conversations. I guess that's the French part of me. Um, but like all of that kind of stuff, just kind of living in the moment, and then maybe going on social media later. But like
Right.
not having it be the only thing that you do that day. And I think that's really important, because it can be so positive in the way where I connect with a lot of my friends all over the world. I have friends from pre-college programs that live in Europe that
Yeah.
live in the Middle East, and I get to connect with them via Instagram. So it's not like I want to completely take away Instagram from my life. I just want to create a healthy boundary about how much and how many times I go on social media, instead of just like enjoying like the fresh air or like spending time with my dog and my family. I think that
Yes.
it's just about balance.
And I
That's what
think
I'm realizing.
quitting anything cold turkey is very difficult. And I do believe that social media, as you said, also has pros like outreach and keeping in touch with people and advocation. However, I do feel that there is this stigma that teenagers do whatever they see on social media, and that can also affect their credibility in a professional setting. So
Yeah.
I think what you said is right. Finding that balance can really help um, establish your credibility, but also do the things that you love.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that you should just 100%, go from 0 to 100%, but I think that you need to present yourself in a way on social media that's authentic and real to like who you are.
Yeah, and
And
what
that's what
matters to you.
yeah, and that's what I try to do with advocacy, because that's really important to me. And I think what you're saying, Ashley, is right about the credibility. Sometimes, I mean, unfortunately, in our world, like with
Yeah,
the internet,
unfortunately.
if you say something on the internet, it's with you forever. So, like,
Yeah,
that can
exactly.
kind of hinder your credibility if you were, like, I don't know, if you said something when you were younger. And so I'm just, again, I think balance is so, so important in terms of social media and teenagers and living in the moment and just like enjoying yourself. And I think that's something that's not talked about a lot, but I think it's really important for teenagers' mental health. And I think it's one of the most credible, kind of healthy things that a person can do. And starting when you're a teenager, I think is a really beneficial thing,
Exactly.
to create healthy boundaries.
Yeah, be yourself, and the credibility will follow.
Yes, I love that. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
thank you. Well, that's it for today. I know, Julia, you have to go, so thank you so much for joining us. I was so honored to have you, always am. And
Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to hearing the rest of your episodes.
thank you so much.
Bye.
All
Thanks for
right, bye,
having
everyone.
me.
Of course. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.